Hello, everyone. So I'm going to start reading a little bit more from the mystery book, yes, but I would also like to make um, a few statements first before I get started. So over the weekend, I'm sure a lot of you guys know or have heard that there was a shooting at a Trump rally in Pennsylvania. I think it was Butler, Pennsylvania. So a person was killed. One of the attendees were killed, and Trump almost got shot in the head. This is really concerning because this is a huge event for our time. I mean, I know there's been a lot of other events that have happened like this. JFK obviously was assassinated successfully, and I think that was obviously an inside job. I'd like someone to prove me wrong on that. To me, this goes to show even more of how apparent it is the deep state. Now, people will have their opinions about that and say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, who's they? What do you mean by they? I mean, let's think about it as like actual intellectual human beings. I will go to say this. If you have never experienced any betrayals in your life from friends and family that have set you up or done things behind your back that shocked you, that you never would have expected someone to do that to you. That's a good example of that, right? Or someone that causes drama and everyone's life is miserable, but they're the ones that stir in the pot. These are similar concepts. Now think about money, power, greed. You put that in the mix, there you have it. That's what a deep state, establishments, people that have the money, the power, the resources to pull strings and make things go the way they want it to. Influence, manipulate. I really believe that, and this is my personal opinion, I believe that there was a major error that had happened. And I personally believe that it was from the inside that allowed this to actually have the ability to take place. I don't want to go into all the details. They're talking enough about it already on the news. You guys can look up for yourself. But the thing is, what really strikes me is this realization of where our country is at right now. Put aside what side you're on. Don't look at things right now as, oh, but I'm on this side. And of course, since I'm like left or I'm a Democrat or I'm this or I'm that, or I hate Trump and stuff like that, it doesn't affect me. No, this will still affect you because this concerns the country, okay? Just mainly for those that live in this country, right? But also, actually, it does concern other countries too, because the United States has ties to, we all do trades around the world, right? One area goes down, something else is affected. There's always something that's going to happen in effect to this. But let me just get back to what I am trying to say here is that it's very concerning to me how the rhetoric of violent rhetoric that is spread throughout our media has influenced people to become. It has gotten to this point because people have been brainwashed, have been manipulated by their emotions, been lied to about what's going on. So they become extremists. And before you start saying, I know there's going to be some people that say, well, he brought this upon himself. How did he bring it upon himself? Let's look back at the last 8 years. So as soon as he got into office, the media, celebrities, even Hollywood, okay, were saying they wanted to, that he was a dictator, that he wanted to that he wanted to bring back slavery, that he was a white supremacist, without any actual proof of that. There's no proof of that. Anyways, let me continue. But they were pushing this. They were constantly pushing this the entire time, saying he's going to take away and he's going to threaten democracy, constantly pushing this violent rhetoric. And even celebrities, Hollywood, got on board to this because they wanted to influence and manipulate the masses even more so. And I mean, you had Madonna saying she wanted to blow up the White House. They had Johnny Depp making hints and making these remarks of, have you ever heard an actor, when was the last time an actor assassinated a president? It was Snoop Dogg making like music videos with Donald Trump's, like a figure that looked like Donald Trump, shooting him in his music video. You had people on the streets that would put on performances of someone dressed up in what looked like, Trump character stabbing them. You had Kathy Griffin, whatever the fuck her name is, a failed comedian and very terrible, ugly human being from what I can see anyways. Who knows? Maybe she has a very traumatic life and that's what happened. But regardless, she was holding up what looked like a severed head of Donald Trump. And you want to tell me that he brought this upon himself? No, I would beg to differ. The media and the lies and the violent, severely violent rhetoric has brought this about. And right now, we need to stop this. We need to stop this. This is not going to bring our country anywhere by allowing people to manipulate us. Okay? With that being said, just pray for our country, whatever side you might be on. Even if you hate him, okay? Just pray for our country that we can stop this, that we can not allow this to get any further than it already is. Because this is going to affect us all. It already has. It will only get worse if we don't do something about it. So now I'm going to go start on chapter 3 of this mystery book. Who's responsible for this garbage? There's probably no better expert in the world to address the origins of the Fourth Industrial Revolution than Patrick Wood, an economist by training, author, and lecturer who has studied the issue of globalization since the late 1970s. Wood first became interested in the question of powerful groups of elites when, as a young financial analyst and writer, he noticed that upon his election in 1976, President Jimmy Carter picked a number of his advisors from a group called the Trilateral Commission, founded in 1973 by David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski, father of current MSNBC host Micah Brzezinski. In his 2016 book, Technocracy Rising, Wood recounts the Carter-Brzezinski relationship. Okay, so this is in the book from Patrick Wood. President James Earl Carter, the Georgia peanut farmer turned politician who promised, "I will never lie to you," was chosen to join the commission by Brzezinski in 1973. It was Brzezinski who first identified Carter as a presidential timber and subsequently educated him in economics, foreign policy, and the ins and outs of world politics. Upon Carter's election, his first appointment placed Brzezinski as assistant. So upon Carter's election, Brzezinski got this spot as an assistant to the president for national security matters. More commonly, he was called head of the National Security Council because he only answered to the president. Some rightly said Brzezinski held the second most powerful position in the US. That's certainly not a bad position in which to find yourself. Second only in power to the President of the United States? Dang, who wouldn't want that gig, especially if it came without the need to do any campaigning? It's an easy way to get in, a very powerful place, and also not be right in front center for all to see. So you're kind of hidden. Let's see, but this didn't happen without decades of prior work. And it certainly began prior to the creation of the Trilateral Commission in 1973. Woods identifies the roots of this globalist movement as beginning with the French philosopher Auguste Comte, 1798 to 1857, generally credited as being the father of modern sociology and considered the first philosopher of science. In the intellectual ferment of the day, it's easy to understand how he came to believe that scientific knowledge was the only authentic knowledge. This quickly gave rise to what's called scientism, professing that science alone is what can answer all questions. For those who came to identify as progressives, namely, those who believe human society is evolving toward perfection, this religion of technocrats, dubbed technocracy by its creators, offered a useful path toward the achievement of their utopian dreams. As Wood explains, industrialization was enabled by science, technology, and invention. As knowledge increased, it was surmised that society must change along with it, or at least adapt to it. Progressives called for bigger government, run by qualified managers with diminishing personal liberty and national sovereignty, but they simultaneously fought to reduce waste and increase efficiency in government. The emphasis on efficiency drove many progressives into technocracy, since science appeared to be the only pathway to achieve it. Now back to analysis. It could then be seen how this new technocracy might interact with other such ideologies, such as progressivism, socialism, fascism, and even capitalism. The scientists and engineers would then be in control of society, and without having to contend with the pesky problems of democracy and individual rights. When I speak of democracy, my readers understand I'm not talking about a pure democracy, but our constitutional republic, a system of majority rule and minority rights, in which elected representatives are given authority to make decisions that they must defend at the next election if they wish to remain in office. Wood goes on to claim that many groups in history, such as the Nazis, fascists, and communists, would adopt many of these principles, but were unwilling to allow the growth of a scientific elite leadership class who would oversee the society. These groups may have been evil, but they understood a challenge to their authority when they saw it. Because of its open and democratic institutions, the West seemed to present the best opportunity for the creation of this scientific engineering elite, or technocracy. The people simply had to be persuaded to accept this gentle tyranny, which would, of course, free them from all their worries. The colossal death toll of World War I, with more than 9 million dead, should have presented an enormous opportunity for the development of a technocratic state, but those brief dreams were dashed by the technological and social changes brought about by the war, which came to fruition with the Roaring '20s. During the early part of the 20th century, the technocracy flame was further developed and kept alive by people like Frederick Taylor, an American mechanical engineer best known for his work, The Principles of Scientific Management, and Walter Rothenstrach, a professor at Columbia University. Many of these ideas would be embraced by a group of intellectuals who broke away from Columbia to form what became known as the New School, led by two men, Thorstein Veblen and his young protege, Howard Scott. In 1921, Veblen released his grand masterpiece, a book titled Engineers and the Price System, in which he wrote, "If the country's productive industry were competently organized as a systematic whole and were then managed by competent technicians, I can't talk right now, competent technicians with an eye to maximum production of goods and services instead of, as now, being manhandled by ignorant businessmen with an eye single to maximum profits. The resulting output of goods and services would doubtless exceed the current output by several 100%. It was only with the arrival of the stock market crash of 1929 and the Great Depression in the United States that an opportunity arose for the technocrats, as Wood recounts, going back to the book. Society was ripe for technocracy during the depths of the Great Depression. It certainly appeared that capitalism was dead. Joblessness, deflation, hunger, anger at politicians and capitalists, and other social stresses had people begging for an explanation as to what went wrong and what could be done to fix it. Technocracy and Company had both Technocracy and Company had both. Capitalism had died a natural death, and a technocracy-oriented society would save them. The engineers, scientists, and technicians who would operate this technocratic utopia would eliminate all waste and corruption. People would only have to work 20 hours per week, and every person would have a job. Abundance would be everywhere. Now back to analysis. The moment of the technocrats had seemingly arrived. The carnage of millions dying in the World War was not enough, but surely the President of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt, could be talked into such a scheme. Roosevelt did adopt some of their ideas, like suspending the gold standard, confiscating the gold of private citizens, and nationalizing certain industries, but he didn't want to hand power over to the technocrats, as Wood explains. In any case, American democracy was found to be unwilling to entertain technocracy, and it was soundly repudiated for all of these reasons. National sovereignty and the constitutional form of government were not dispensable. Nobody was willing to give up private property or the possibility of accumulating private wealth. The apparent similarities between Technocracy and Company and Nazi fascism were aberrant to most Americans. The grandiose promises of technocracy were seen as so much free lunch, and toward the end of the Great Depression, everybody knew from experience that there was no such thing. According to Wood, the technocrats didn't get their way during the Great Depression or World War II. However, in the aftermath of the defeat of Nazi Germany, some of their best scientists and engineers came to America by way of a CIA program called Operation Paperclip, infiltrating our defense, our space industries, led most notably by former Nazi rocket scientist Werner von Braun, widely credited for heading the American program to put a man on the moon. The technocrats didn't win the battle for public opinion, but even the Nazi technocrats were able to find a home in American industry and government work. The monster of technocracy slumbered in the American nation, waiting for the opportunity to rise and seize power. Let me see how long this one is, because we're already at 18 minutes. I'm not so sure if I want to make this too long. We'll just continue. Patrick Wood was kind enough to give an interview to me, as he has now been lecturing about the dangers of the technocracy for more than 40 years. He's a tall, distinguished-looking man with a full head of white hair and a closely cropped beard, usually dressed in a suit and tie, and reminds one of a distinguished college professor. This should not come as much of a surprise, considering that his longtime collaborator in this research was Dr. Anthony Sutton, a former economics professor at Stanford University and a member of the Hoover Institute for War, Peace, and Revolution. Sutton was jokingly referred to by his colleagues as the Hoover vacuum cleaner on account of his voracious appetite for details. Wood's interest in technocracy began shortly after the 1976 presidential election of Jimmy Carter and his vice president, Walter Mondale. And then back to the book here. As a young financial analyst and writer, I carefully followed Carter's initial round of appointees, the top positions in his cabinet and other important posts. After all, Carter had made a big campaign pitch about being an establishment outsider with few contacts within the Beltway. Who would he bring to the table? As the list of appointees piled up, I noticed that several were members of the Trilateral Commission, whatever that was, and my curiosity was immediately piqued. After digging up and sifting through a list of Trilateral Commission members and seeing over a dozen trilateral appointees, it became immediately obvious that some sort of coup was underway. But what? In our interview, I began by asking him to explain the role played by Zbigniew Brzezinski, Carter's patron, Henry Kissinger. Kissinger, I think. President Nixon's National Security Advisor and Secretary of State, as well as the contribution of David Rockefeller, who seemed to be the financial dynamo behind the modern-day origins of this technocracy. I also asked about the Trilateral Commission and its subsequent evolution into the World Economic Forum, created by Klaus Schwab, and his designation of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Okay, I'll just read the rest of this and then we'll end it there for now. We're going back to the book and it says, let's start with the Trilateral Commission founded in 1973. That was the beginning of modern globalization. What happened in the years before 1973 was largely unsuccessful, and the global elite knew that. So they embarked on a new mission with the Trilateral Commission to essentially do an end run around national sovereignty and around the world, and to create what they called a new international economic order. That was their marching orders. It was created by David Rockefeller, a chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank and from the Rockefeller oil dynasty. The other founder was a political scientist from Columbia University named Zbigniew Brzezinski. The two of them founded the Trilateral Commission. The significance of Brzezinski being at Columbia University is that he was aware of what technocracy was, because that's where it was developed in the early 1930s. Brzezinski wrote a book called Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. That book foretold the technotronic era we're living in today. That book endeared him to David Rockefeller, who was looking for a way to extend his monopoly power by capturing the resources of the world. And now back to analysis. The outlines of the story Patrick Wood told were clear and easy to follow. This technocracy ideal, a world run by engineers and scientists, was essentially developed in the late 19th century and found an academic home at Columbia University in the 1930s. The philosophy did not sway Franklin Roosevelt, but did sway Adolf Hitler. Oh my gosh, I can't even say his name. Adolf Hitler. Who depended not on politicians, but scientists and engineers to run his Third Reich. Brzezinski further developed these ideas in his book, which caught the attention of David Rockefeller. The technocrats then saw an opportunity to rebrand their philosophy, and within a few short years had captured the presidency with the election of Jimmy Carter and his new national security advisor, Zbigniew Brzezinski. I think it's important to understand that technocracy can't accurately be called communism or democracy. It is best understood as a monopoly on power, held jointly by big business and big government. And that's where we will stop for now, and we will continue the rest of Chapter 3 in our next video. Again, I wish all of you well. We must continue living, obviously. Life does not stop. Because if life stops, then we're giving up, right? And we don't give up. We continue living. We continue putting our best foot forward and bridging the gaps of divide to make this world a better place to live in, to be fair as we possibly can be, to hear our neighbors, our brothers and sisters, to have humility, gratitude for all the blessings we have in our life that could so easily be taken away. We don't want to take things for granted, and we don't want to hate our neighbors. We don't want to develop hatred for people who have different views of us. We want to stop that mess. Otherwise, we will end up eating each other alive and tearing each other apart. And that is not what I want for my life. It's not what I want for my children's lives. And it's not what I want for your life. So we will keep moving forwards and we will be strong. All right. Bye, guys.